Good morning. Very, 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 very intentional about picking that song this morning because I remember hearing it for the very first time a couple of years ago. And the message that I get from it is learning to accept and celebrate all of me, all the funniness, all the weirdness, all the outside the boxness, all the willingness to just show up as who and what I am. Because I know for myself, I spent a lot of my life worrying and being concerned with not standing out too much, of being compliant, of following all the rules and conventional norms that our world tries to put upon me or tried to put upon me. And I've spent a lot of a lot of my life pushing back against that in a very quiet and maybe sometimes not so quiet way. And then being fearful about, well, am I going to be judged? Am I going to be this, that, or the other? Are people still going to like me? Am I going to like me? Am I going to walk through the world happy with the way I'm showing up or trying to make sure that everybody and everything around me is happy with the way I'm showing up? Today, we're kind of wrapping up the whole week or the whole month, I'm sorry, the whole month about living a richer life. And today, the title is Embodying Wholeness and Joy and Living a Richer Life. And so, as we walk through this today, the story is very much about how do I express and accept all of me? What does wholeness look like in my world? And what does it feel like inside? Because the expression of wholeness as we would have it in our own lives is very much an inside job. It's an inside exploration and one where I get to learn to be happy with me and happy with how I'm showing up. And really looking at what is getting in my way? How am I getting in my own way? What limitations am I accepting? What limitations am I willing to step through? And where do I begin and how do I get to where I want to be? How do I live richly? How do I live opulently? How do I live joyously? And that way of living begins with remembering that we are already whole. And if I'm not feeling whole, what is it that I have accepted? What is it that I have started to believe about me or believed about me up until now that says, you know what, I'm just not enough? How do I embody and integrate a more expanded vision of myself? Ernest Holmes writes this. He says, and Ernest Holmes, the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, and the author of the book, The Science of Mind, he writes that peace is the power at the heart of God. Peace is the power at the heart of God. And how often do we think of peace as something powerful? And I remember talking with a friend of mine, another spiritual leader named Sid McNary, and just a wonderful, wonderful man. And his whole effort is around peace. That is his work, that is his calling. And I remember him saying, the peace begins everything. Peace is the foundation for all happiness. Peace is the foundation of joy. Peace is the foundation of everything. And I sat and I thought about it. I said, you know what? Yeah, yes, I can absolutely buy into that. And then I saw this quote from Ernest Holmes: peace is the power at the heart of God. And I remembered one of the things that Ernest wrote, and I didn't have time to go dig up and find it this morning. But Ernest was talking about spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. And the message was essentially that what we want to do is build up a calm inner knowing. That when we are praying, when we are doing our spiritual work to set something new in motion, we want to come to a place where we have just this deep, calm inner knowing that all is well, that it's complete, that whatever it is we are seeking to create, seeking to manifest in our lives, it's already done. And like we talk about planting the seed and covering it up and watering it and walking away, and we know that it's going to grow, no doubt. That's that place of peace. Because the healing process that we are going through, the healing process that we are engaged in our lives is very much about coming to a peaceful place. And let's not confuse a sense of peace with, what's the best word? Walking through life as if we're half sedated. Complacency or sedated. Peace is a joyful state. Can be. Absolutely. That peaceful smile, that peaceful, calm inner knowing that we are looking for. And to go along with all of this about how we're creating that calm inner knowing is a message from Eric Butterworth where he says, you do not have to pray for what you want. What? Don't have to pray for what I want? No. You merely have to get yourself into the awareness of it. Now, I'm standing up here, a science of mind student, religious science minister, and we talk about being the prayingest people on the planet. But there's a difference between prayer as beseeching and difference in prayer as affirmative prayer, where what we indeed are doing is getting ourselves to a place where we develop an awareness of that which we desire. Where we walk through the world expecting, wholly expecting that thing that we have set in motion, that idea that we have planted, is already manifest in our world. Because at the level of the universal subjective, at the level of source, once we have created this divine entity that's taken this idea and boxed it up and created and wrapped it in color and feeling and all the things and let it go, we get up from where we are and move along absolutely awake and aware to the fact that it is already complete. That which we have set in motion is already manifesting itself in terms of our experience, because we go about our world as if it or something greater is finding its way into our experience. And I walk in the world in a renewed and joyful way, a peaceful, joy-filled expectancy that my good is going to greet me at every turn. That life, that source, that God, whatever that divine thing is we name it, is already saying yes to us. because that is its only response. We want to walk in this life. I want to walk in this life knowing that wholeness is what I am, that I get to embrace and express and experience myself in a way that brings me joy. It's like I kept that in mind this morning as I picked my outfit, right? I get to wear a t-shirt and a vest and jeans and Converse with red socks because it made me happy. And I want to stand up here and be happy. Quite honestly, I did suit and tie every day for a long time, folks. And sometimes it feels good and sometimes it feels compliant. Sometimes it feels compliant. Like I'm doing it because it's what's expected, not because it's what I want to do. How many often am I the only one who does that? No. I'm absolutely not the only one who does that. We do that all the time. What would happen? What would happen if in your life, in your world, you did only those things that brought you a sense of joy and a sense of peace and a sense of happiness in one way or another? And sometimes, granted, sometimes we find ourselves in a position where I get to show up for my job and I get paid, right? I get to remember sometimes my job is not something that makes me happy. Sometimes my job is not something that makes me joyful, but on the whole, the work that I do on a day in, day out basis, 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, it's a happy thing. I show up, I fix things, I go away, they're happy, right? I fix the washing machine, I fix the cabinet, I clean the floor, I paint the walls. I do all that stuff. And the people that I see are happy to see me when I show up because I know I'm coming to fix something. It's a good thing. I leave them smiling. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I wake up early. Sometimes I pull a 16-hour shift. And I go, I'm tired. And in the same breath, I love what I do. Because I love what I do, I get compensated well for it. What if I got to approach everything I did in my life in that same fashion? Sometimes there are things that are hard, and in the same breath, if I look at it and say, where's the joy in this? How do I show up as love in this? How do I show up with a sense of peace and happiness and engagement, even in the midst of something that may be painful in the moment? Maybe it's stretching me. Maybe it's inviting me to grow. Because what happens when I begin to integrate life, when I begin to integrate all these spiritual principles into my day-to-day living, is a sense of authenticity. That says, today I'm going to show up as authentically me. Because quite honestly, if we really stopped and thought about it, the people that we are, well, let me phrase that. When I stop and think about it truly, the people that I'm concerned with judging me or looking at me and saying, oh, is that weird guy over there? Is he, what? When I leave their presence, are they really thinking about me? I mean, really? Are they really that concerned with me and my life? on a day in, day out basis? Are they living in my head? Or maybe I'm letting them live in my head rent free. No, they're really not. So why not? Go ahead and be you. Go ahead and be 100% authentically you. Be vulnerable, be open, be who and what you are, because this world is waiting for us to show up. Quite honestly, there's a lot going on out there in the world, and if I can be a source of peace, because at the level of universal consciousness, at the level of the universal subjective mind, we're all connected. And as I grow, as I learn, as I expand, as I clear away all the nonsense and chaos that's in my consciousness and become more aligned with the truth of who I am, that just helps make it easier for everybody else. And if you want to go be an activist for less and such, go for it. Don't do it. If you want to sit quietly and calmly and develop that peace and consciousness in yourself, do it that way. Caroline Myss writes this. She says, the soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind, right? We quiet the committee. We quiet the doubts. We quiet the uncertainty and allow our divine self to run the show. The part of me that remembers who and what I am, so that I can set everything else aside and learn and grow and expand. Michael Beckwith goes on to say this. He says, you are not here to shrink down to less, but to blossom into more, to grow and expand and to be more today than I was yesterday, to grow and expand and to set aside the thoughts of lack and limitation and then understand that I am more than I appear to be. And that as I embrace that on the inside, it gets reflected back to me in the outside. The more beauty and joy and love I can embrace inside myself, the more it shows up in my world. That richer life shows up for me when I show up as it on the inside. Marianne Williamson writes this. She says, joy is what happens when you realize just how good things really are. When I embrace what's going on in here and clean this up, when I let the chaos calm a little bit and embrace the beauty on the inside of me, I can see it better out here. So I had a trainee this week for my day job, and we were talking about painting and painters. One of my first jobs in the trade was as a painter, and even today, because that was it was an early part of my life and a big part of my life at one time. I walk into a room with painted walls. I see the mistakes. I see stuff that all y'all probably don't even know unless you're a painter. That's why painters have painters have, it's either a 6 foot or a 10 foot, depending on who you're talking about. If it looks good from 10 feet away, it's good, right? But I walk in and I can see a little miss here, a little miss there, a corner here, this, that, or the other. And I have to calm that down. So am I seeing all the picture or am I looking for the mistakes in my life? What am I looking for? What am I looking for? What am I expecting to see? If I could set aside that part of me that wants to find all the mistakes, find all the errors, imagine what would be possible. How joyful would my life be if I quit looking for the mistakes and just decided to celebrate the wins, to look for the sparkles and the glimmers in life rather than the darkness, rather than the sadness. Doesn't mean all that goes away, but what it means is, how am I walking through life? What is my experience of life going to be on day in, day out basis? We begin living in the flow of an abundant universe when we begin developing the feelings for it. Begin living a rich life when I embrace what's going on as simply the flow of my good. Because this thing that we call God, this thing we call spirit or source or whatever, is always showing up for us. The difference is whether or not I am recognizing it, whether or not I am seeing it, whether or not I am willing to simply embrace it and accept it as my own. Wholeness and joy generate an expansive experience of good, day in, day out. Wholeness and joy. Wholeness and joy are your divine birthright. Wholeness and joy are essentially what we are. All we have to do is get ourselves out of the way. And remember that we are not here to shrink, we are here to bloom. So with that, we'll move into our spiritual practice for the week. Let me find it. Where to go? There it is. Morning affirmation this week. I live from wholeness. I tune into joy. I trust the richness of spirit flowing through me. Let's say that together. Ready? I live from wholeness. I tune in to joy. I trust the richness of spirit flowing through me. Your daily reflections this week. What brought me joy today? Where did I feel peace, even briefly? And how did I embody my truth? And so this week, if you find yourself sharing your own story, share it from a healing perspective. Like, we start telling stories about ourselves, about the challenges we've had and the hardships we've had, and and that's all great, right? Tell those stories, but share what you learned. Share how we've healed from it as well. Give from your overflow and rest in the awareness that you are already whole. We are already whole. Healing is revealing the divine idea of who and what you are. That is what healing is. So, with that, now it's your turn. Any questions? Questions, comments? And those of you watching online, I am watching the chat. So if there's questions in there as well, we can do that too.
Well, I had one. I liked your quote of, what am I looking for in my life, my mistakes or my wins? That's huge. It's proving that principle of what we focus on expands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are you giving attention to?
Right. Right.
All right. We can move on.
All right.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Before we move into prayer, I do have something to share. my life has evolved in such a way that my time is being chewed up by other things with very high priorities, family matters, and so on. And so I find myself in a position where I found myself in a position as I was thinking about the last few weeks where I realized that the energy I've been pouring into the center has been what's left over, which is not fair to anybody. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. So, and, and I talked with Jill earlier this week, and I've decided that it's time for me to step down as co-spiritual leader because I just can't do it. I cannot do it in a way that I feel joyful about. And so we stepping down as co-spiritual leader. Jill and I talked about it, and she completely understands and supports the choice that I'm making. Doesn't mean we won't be around. We will be around, just not as much. Um, and it's been a joy to be here and to be in service to all of you here in the space and all of you online. And I just want to share that with you today because it's important. I didn't want to just disappear. That wouldn't be fair. Wouldn't be kind or nice. But this is me following my heart and doing exactly what the message is about today and listening to what's going on in here. So, my appreciation to all of you. Let's pray. And so today, let's begin with gratitude. Gratitude for love and joy and peace. Gratitude for our awareness. The God as source, as infinite spirit, as love, as truth, as peace, as happiness, prosperity, as all this surrounds us, enfolds us, and lifts us up right here and now to see and to be and to express the truth of who we are in ever expanding ways. Closer than the thoughts we think, the breath we breathe, our hands and feet, it is the essence of who and what we are, each and every one. And so I speak this word of truth for myself here this morning, for anybody with anything on their minds and hearts here today, any desires, any challenges. Let's take this moment with a breath to set it all aside. To set aside all that has gone before so that we can express and experience the fullness of who and what we are in this and every moment. For all those here in the space, all those watching online, all of our friends around the world, we know that peace and love, joy and wholeness are the truth of who and what we are. The light shines forth expansively, expressively as who and what we are. And so, with gratitude and joy and happiness, with a little giggle in our hearts, we go forward into the rest of this day, trusting that all is well, that life is good and very good, as each and every one of us, right here and right now. And so we let it be, and so it is.